What's up YouTube? My name is Caden and you're watching Gas at Garage. Today we are doing part 8 of the 670 Yerf Dog go-kart project. In today's video I'm going to be mounting the other set of A-arms as well as hooking up the steering and hopefully putting the wheels and tires on as well as the shocks. Enjoy the video. Alright guys, so in the last video of this project, we got both sets of A-arms completely built and fully welded together, and then I also mounted this side. And I measured it, and this thing has 15 inches of total suspension travel if you include the measurement after I cut this little piece right here, because it is hitting the heim joint. So the first thing I want to do to get started is go ahead and mount the other set of A-arms on the driver's side here. And then after that's done, then I can go ahead and try to mount the wheels and tires using the bolts from the old spindles as well as the old hubs right here. So let's go ahead and start by mounting the other set of A-arms. Alright guys, so I got the other set of A-arms mounted on here, and I also just kind of set the wheels and tires on the sides here to see how it looks. And holy cow, this thing has a pretty wide stance here, which is going to give it a lot of stability and also quite a lot of ground clearance, which is nice. So the next step, now that I have the A-arms completely mounted and welded in, is to actually weld on those bolts I mentioned earlier to right here so I can put the hubs on and bolt the wheels and tires to them. And then I also have to trim right here on this piece to get that to clear and not run into the heim joint and allow the suspension to droop all the way down. And then after the wheels and tires are on, then I can mount the shocks. And then after those are done, then we can move on to the fun part, steering. So let's go ahead and get these tires mounted. So I have both the wheels and tires actually mounted onto the spindles now, and this thing is looking pretty cool. And the spindles actually do clear the tires on both sides, which is good. And then I also trimmed that to make clearance for the heim joint, and it just barely clears in there, but it clears nonetheless. So the next thing I have to do is, unfortunately, these bearings in here are not the right size, and also they're pretty worn out because you can see this tire wobbles all over the place, and this one especially, there's a ton of play in it, and you just can't have that. So I'm going to take these back off and try and find some bearings to replace in these hubs. Alright, now that the bearings are replaced in the hubs and the wheels and tires are bolted back on, now let's build the shock mounts and mount the shocks. Alright guys, so I've got the suspension on both sides tacked into place right now. It's not fully welded, it's just tacked. in case I want to make any changes. So I've got this thing up on the jack, and I'm going to lower this thing down, and we're going to do a first suspension test on this thing. Something popped. I think that's actually just about perfect. And these are nowhere near bottoming out. That is awesome. It's a little soft, but it's pretty darn good for a go-kart like this. Now, what I will do is I'm actually going to make a second set of upper suspension mounts up here that are going to come off right here-ish. And those are going to be for if I want to mount the shocks at a more aggressive angle, to have them way stiffer in case I want to ever jump this thing, or if I just want way stiffer suspension for something. So this seems pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and weld these in and make them solid and make the second set of upper mounts. So I did a little bit of work off camera, and I made these new upper shock mounts actually out of the old lower A-arms that were on this thing. And I'm going to weld them in up here kind of like this, and the shock is going to bolt into it kind of like that, and it's going to sit right about there like that. And that'll put the shocks at a more aggressive angle, which should stiffen up the suspension if I want to carry another person in this thing or jump this. So let's go ahead and get these welded up. Alright, before we finish welding in these new upper shock mounts fully, I want to test the suspension real quick. Yeah, that's definitely a whole lot stiffer, but it's still just soft enough to where it can compress a lot. So I think that'll be just perfect for rougher riding and possibly jumping. So I think that's good. Let's go ahead and weld these in, and I'm also going to weld in a crossbar going from here to give these things some triangulation and make them stronger. So All right, guys, so I have this new crossbar welded in right here to brace up the new upper shock mounts and make them extra strong. And quite honestly, I've been building this whole front end to make it way, way stronger than the original one, because I want this thing to be able to handle whatever I throw at it, whether that be jumps, a heavier passenger, really hard bumps, hard turning, hard driving, whatever I throw at it, I want it to be able to handle it, be reliable, and not break. So I've just been making this thing extra overkill strong. But unfortunately, that is all the time we have in today's video, but we did get a lot done here. We got both the upper and lower shock mounts completely built and welded together. And I also just tacked in the steering rack right here with that bracket that I made. And the reason it's just tacked right now is because I may want to make some changes to it later, especially since the tie rods are not extended yet, nor are they actually connected to the spindles. So I may need to make some changes on that. But that's gonna have to be it for this video, guys. So in the next video of this project, we are going to finish up the steering, get the steering rack all welded in. I'm also going to extend the tie rods and connect them to the spindles on some tabs that I still have to make. And then I'm also going to build a bumper for this thing to protect the nice new front suspension that I build in case I hit anything, which hopefully doesn't happen. And then I'm also going to be mounting the fuel tank, as well as building a battery box for the new battery that I'm going to get. And then I also have a couple of small things with the wiring to finish up. And then after those things are done, then hopefully in the next video, we can take this thing for a test drive and finally test out this new front suspension and see how it performs. But that's all for this video, guys. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and I will see you in part 9.